So hi, this morning I'm with Piragash Sivanesan from Totem Finance. Now Piragash is from Aston Business School, or was some years ago, moved into banking with Lloyd's and has covered a serious amount of transactions with Lloyd's and he's also a regular speaker now. He's spoken at my events, John Corrie's events, Property Fortress, Matt Siddell's PPN, Knightsbridge. Piragash has got two events this coming Thursday morning. Thursday morning with my event. When I say my event, it's going to be focused on commercial funding, commercial investment. Delighted that John Williams is going to be speaking there as well from the Instant Group, focusing on workspace and the trend. And in fact, where we are right now is probably influenced from workspace as well. And also on Thursday, you're going to be at PPN Cambridge. So I'm really delighted that Piragash, who's regularly at my meets, I don't like to say mortgage update, but property finance update at the beautiful central London Grosvenor Casino, easy to get to. So rather than me rattle on about the upcoming event, let's give some of the listeners a bit of detail and cover the key question. And thank you for joining us. Feel free to add a comment. So if you've got a question, it doesn't necessarily have to be commercial related, the question, so it could be a little bit more wider spectrum. But let's look at the key question about commercial property and about resilience. What's your feelings about commercial? Do you think it's going to be more resilient than residential, particularly in this? I can't even keep up to date about Brexit right now because.
Are we in? Are we out?
Yeah, exactly. It's the most uncertain time, I would say, in British politics, certainly for the last 45 years, maybe even a lot longer than that. And I think it's been underplayed, in fact, the turbulent nature. Although I'm not an expert in this, and I'm with one of the UK's leading experts on investment, looking at the financial side. And
Who's that?
You.
Me? Oh, right. Thanks, Brendan. I mean, I think I'm really looking forward to the panel on Thursday morning. I think it'll be really interesting because I think often a lot of investors clearly come into property initially focused on the residential sector. And then they may do things like moving into, we're starting to see people move into HMOs, service accommodation, etc. And it's starting to commercialise, even those aspects, the way in which they run those, should I say businesses really. You shouldn't maybe look at that as a passive investment, like say for example buy-to-let can be considered. Now, what's going to be more resilient in 2017? To be honest, I don't have all the answers, but what I do think is that certainly people should look at the diversification that they can get from commercial. I mean, let's explore some of why you'd want to do that. So, for example, in terms of your cash flows, depending on the commercial asset that you own and the commercial tenant that you have, something unique to commercial is that you potentially will get paid in advance, or quarterly in advance, or 6 monthly in advance. I'm pretty sure that most of you who own buy-to-lets don't get paid in advance. What's the benefit of that in terms of cash flow? And what is the benefit of that in an uncertain time? If you've got, for example, an expansion of HMOs in your area and it's taking longer to get room utilisation up. Now, if you've got a commercial investment and someone signed up to a 5-year contract with perhaps a year's cash in advance, what kind of certainty does that bring? Away from perhaps just purely the returns. So this is some of the thinking that I think makes commercial really interesting next year. And of course, beyond just the metric of the cash, there's the fact that you get tenants who will potentially sign up for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, again, guaranteeing you that cash flow.
And there's different classifications of tenants in commercial more than residential market. Of course, there are different classifications in residential, but it's about assessing which tenant fits the commercial avenue that you're looking to go into.
I think that's a great point, Brendan. I mean, ultimately, when you look at, if you are looking to kind of enter into the commercial space, from a lending perspective, one of the things that we would want to see is your experience of managing, that you have gone through that process of managing ASTs on a buy-to-let, HMOs, to then move into commercial, which does require a little bit more upfront work.
That's interesting, because I do see some people suggest that you just jump the initial hurdle of residential and go straight to commercial, but for a lender's perspective, they actually like that you've had a background in residential, or some lenders may do.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to some kind of experience. Again, just like HMOs are different to buy-to-lets, commercials are also very different. I mean, commercials are great when you've got a tenant, but actually the void periods can often be a lot longer because the demand is a little bit different. If you've got a high street, I mean, there's so many different dynamics, but if you've got a high street location and the high street, or you lose a tenant, maybe it's a blue chip tenant, how do you then attract another tenant into the area? Perhaps the dynamic of the high street is changing. All of those things. In a standard buy-to-let, you haven't got that same issue with demand. We all know there is a massive dearth of rentable quality housing stock. So it's a different way of kind of managing your portfolio and managing void periods as well. So all of those things go into, or some of the considerations, and like anything, I think you need to dominate your ground, I think is the buzz phrase that people use, but you need to absolutely understand who your tenant is for this area, but also there's really interesting things that can happen. You can asset manage sites, so you may buy a site with a certain tenant, say a local tenant, and I like local tenants, being a small business. If there's a small business that's paid their rents for 5, 6, 10 years, I think they should get they should almost be considered blue chip. However, people talk about the best being the Costas, the Tesco's, all of these things, but there's lots of nuances. It's really important to also understand who is your tenant. So the legals are really, really important. The contract is really, really important. It needs to be given due consideration, because you may think you're signing up Tesco, but you're actually signing up a subsidiary of a subsidiary of a subsidiary that's not actually worth anything. So understanding the kind of financial balance sheet of your tenant is quite important as well. Having said that, this can be offset by them paying in advance. I think cash is king. These are some of the sorts of things that I think it's worth exploring when you're looking at commercial property.
So people talk about balance sheets and so forth. Is it just literally having your accountant, or is it looking at someone specialist who does commercial investing? Who would be the key people in your team apart from yourself, Piragash, from Totem Finance? Who would be the key people? Because it sounds like it would be a different team in terms of the balance sheet, unless maybe your background is in finance, accountancy as well.
Yeah, I mean, let's not get too complicated. So ultimately, although I say balance sheet, what we're wanting to know is how we've agreed this fantastic contract for maybe 5 years with a tenant, possible tenant. So your solicitor has really helped you with that, and it's a solicitor that's got to have experience of commercial property with all the different clauses, etc., ensuring that effectively your responsibility is hopefully largely devolved if it's a good contract in your favour. But then moving on from that, the key question is okay, so we've got this contract, but can they pay? And that you can go to nth degree in terms of what that means. So you could maybe look at their last 3 months' bank statements and understand what kind of cash they have. That's a very simple way of understanding, potentially how a client could pay you. Yes, you can obviously look at their financials, and if you don't understand financials, you can get an accountant to review that, or even your broker should be able to review that to give them their feel on the serviceability of, or the ability for the tenant to kind of service the debt.
Because normally they pay 6 months in advance. Is it 6 to?
I don't think there is a normal.
Oh, no? Okay.
Because a normal for Tesco is a different normal to Costa, which is a different normal to a hotel, which is a different normal to a local dry cleaners or hairdressers. You know, so I think the point about commercial is you're much more in a world of bespoke kind of legals and contractual situations. So from a lender's perspective, you know, understanding that lease is absolutely imperative in terms of understanding, you know, if you're going to be able to repay, and then what happens. See, the biggest thing with commercial is what happens when a void comes, because, and this is again, you know, if you're building up your commercial portfolio, something that you should absolutely understand, and a number you should keep for your lenders is how long do you have in terms of void periods? You know, if a tenant does go, it happens. You know, I mean, that's just normal business. But how do you react? How quickly can you get that site re-tenanted? And especially when we're talking about a complicated contract, or if someone's going to sign into a 5-year agreement, chances are they're not going to just be available the next month to sign into a 5-year agreement. You know, if there's no walkaway periods. So these are the types of things that would need to be considered.
So now we've got a number of listeners on here this morning, and thank you for joining us. If there's any comments, you know, feel free to add, because it's taken me a lot of persuasion to get Piragash to do this Facebook Live. You know, to be fair, it's my first ever Facebook Live, not by myself. I've done Facebook Live before, but with one of the UK's leading experts. Piragash, I just want to make sure people know how to reach Totem Finance online. I know some people may not be able to make this coming Thursday morning, so it's an amazing panel. It's with the likes of Shawbrook, Ranjan Bhattacharya, Kampf, yourself, plus Barry Shaw, commercial property solicitor from Wallace LLP. Plus there's going to be a presentation from John Williams, who recently presented at MIPIM. So, you know, I was advised by one of my close associates that John spoke and was really sharing some useful information about workspace and the direction it's going. So I understand you may be away on holiday whilst listening to this, or you may be busy on Thursday. So the two key things to note. One is this meet is not an ad hoc meet in terms of Central London morning meets. It's not normally focused on commercial though, so that's, I would say, the USP for this particular meet on this particular day. So normally it's geared towards residential. I'm open to doing different topics, so it doesn't necessarily have to be, as I say, residential. It can be commercial, it can be a mixture as well. In fact, that's what Ranjan Bhattacharya's portfolio is, a mixture of residential and commercial. I'm rattling on, and the key thing is, how can people connect with you post Thursday or before? You know, people want to connect with Totem Finance.
I guess the easiest way is people can email us at ask@totemfinance. That's TOTUM finance.com. We've got a Facebook page, so feel free to come in and make comments, ask us questions. We're always pretty good at getting back to you. And obviously we've got our website, www.totemfinance.com.
So as I say, if there's any key questions you want to have covered, you know, feel free to post me a message on Facebook. You can also connect with me on Twitter. I actively use Twitter at Brendan_Quinn UK. If there's someone you'd like for me to do a Facebook Live with, you know, feel free. I've got Martin Skinner. I'm really delighted he said yes. You know, what would be really useful for me is some key questions you want me to ask Martin. Martin is from Inspired Asset Management, Inspired Asset, you know, noted for his projects in Croydon particularly. I've known Martin for a long time. So I'm really delighted that Martin said yes. I don't want to keep Piragash on too long. So what we're going to say for the moment is, if you've got any key questions, feel free just to email myself, brendan@brendanjquinn.com. You can connect with me as well at my events. The events which I run take place on a monthly basis. It doesn't matter whether it's daytime or evening, because I've got both of those times connected. So I've had over 100 plus speakers at my events. There's also the membership package as well, which is just £200 for the whole 12 months. And that does include my one-day workshop as well on the 28th of January. So the 28th of January is my one-day workshop. It's with the likes of Nicole Bremner and the Vincent Group. So there's lots of content which we've given you already this morning. I just want to say huge thanks for Piragash for spending time. I want to also thank you, the listeners, as well, because it would be a bit boring to have just me and Piragash speaking and no one listening. So I really do value your listening, and also huge thanks to one of you who connected with me last night or early this morning saying up at 8:30 p.m. Look, Facebook Live is new to the UK, it's new worldwide. If there's a particular time when you're thinking, look, we want to hear some of the serious players in the property world right now, you know, when is the best time? I may not be able to necessarily do it at that particular time, but that's an option as well. So, you know, your feedback, your comments, your suggestions are welcome. I just want to say huge thanks to you, Piragash, for this one. And thank you.